welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Agnés Jasmine, and today my guest is Imogen Oberski.
Hello.
Who runs holistic eyesight improvement classes, practices here at Salisbury Centre, where we're recording this interview. And I came across your ad on Salisbury Centre website half a year ago. I came over for a few classes and I found them very valuable. That's the idea of the interview. But would you like to tell us a little bit about how you see this method, what's your experience with running those classes and with using that method for yourself? So holistic eyesight improvement, what is it?
Okay, that's like 4 questions.
I know.
So maybe I'll start with just me. Until I was about 12, 13, I had perfect eyesight, and then I moved schools a few times, and at some point I couldn't see the board in maths class so well. Probably had something to do with it being maths class, so I think the teacher maybe said something to my parents, and I think my mother took me to the optometrist to get my eyes checked, and it was like a small prescription, and they gave me some glasses. But I remember at the time feeling like this doesn't really make sense, or like something didn't feel right about it, and also feeling kind of sad, feeling like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with me, because my sister, her eyes were fine, she was older than me, and they were telling me that, oh, but both your parents wear glasses, so it's normal that you also would wear them. And I was thinking, well, wait a minute, my sister doesn't, so like that's not fair.
But that started with the blackboard, right? So you couldn't see
exactly.
Letters in the blackboard.
And I actually remember also that it was, for some reason, this math class, it was always very dark. I think the teacher, like, he didn't put the lights on quite often, but would close the blinds as well. Now that I'm remembering
and it's funny that you've mentioned particular setting where you've noticed that you cannot see very well, and it was maths. Did you like maths, can I ask?
I liked the boy I sat next to. That's probably about it. And then I think that he actually got moved because we were like talking too much. So then it was just really boring. But anyway, so I remember having this feeling that something about this is not right, but I didn't really understand how to articulate that or know if I was right to feel that way. And then I remember my dad mentioning that when he was younger, he had improved his eyesight by like
That was many years later, right?
So he had done that when he was younger. It was a few years later, I think.
Yes, so you were around 12 or 13, you were taken to the optician by your parents, and you were told that it's normal that you're using your eyesight because both of your parents wear glasses, and it's perfectly okay. Usual normal process to wear glasses when you need them. So you did.
Yeah.
And then when you grew up and really a young adult, right?
Well, so my dad mentioned it to me quite early on because he had already done it when he was in his 20s. So he had managed to improve his eyesight a bit, and then for some reason he'd kind of like not continued the practice, just the stresses of life, I guess. But I remember him showing me this. He had like one like PDF book that he sent me, and it was quite an old-fashioned thing. And for me at that age, I just thought, like, I didn't find it inspiring, and I didn't have any proof that it would work, so I just didn't really bother with it. But it did mean that I knew that there was some concept of natural eyesight improvement. And
plus,
then,
you had an example from a doctor who said it worked for him.
Yeah, he said he'd managed to improve it by 1 diopter, which is fairly significant, especially without support and stuff like this. And so, fast forward to finishing uni, coming back to the UK. I'd been travelling for a bit, and then I was living in the countryside where I live now, and lockdown started. And I didn't have a driving license, and so that meant that there was very little work that I could do because so much work had been stopped. The bus service to where I lived was stopped, so I was basically just stranded in the countryside. But it was a really beautiful spring, I remember, and I just remember thinking, okay, like I'm really going to see what I can do with my eyesight now, because I don't have any of these pressures of like having to go to uni or having to work, or I can just be outside all the time, and it's safe here. There's no cars, there's no demands on me really at this time. So I just took my glasses off and
this
just wanted to...
idea came to you during the pandemic, basically. It was an unusual time for everyone.
Yeah, and it was when I decided that I was going to commit to it.
Yeah.
Because I'd always been in the back of my mind, but there was always some reason that I couldn't do it. Like I had to finish uni, so I had to be on the computer all the time, or I had to finish school, or I was traveling, like doing stuff. And then at some point I was like, okay, I'm actually just going to commit to this now and see what's possible.
So I think it's quite significant that that idea came to you in a particular time for us all, but also yourself, that you had the right conditions, right? So you could actually slow down and look at that. Because from the classes that I attended with you so far, and I think I've been to 4 of them within like half a year, and I started practicing then also at home. Like, you know, I found this old book of mine that I had that was published in Polish language, but written actually by a German author. I'm gonna write the title and description of that video if you'd like to look for it. Don't know if it's easy to find it, but I still have a copy of it.
Yeah.
So I came back. I started doing it over last half a year, and that wasn't, to me, it wasn't only about eyesight, and I think that's why I'm asking all those more detailed questions, because it seems to me that eyesight itself is so much more than just how clear we can see and how clear is our vision. So already in what you have told me, you've mentioned a few things that I think are quite significant to understanding why we might struggle to see as clearly as we would like to, or why we'd like to improve our eyesight, because there seems to be a lot of judgment there and understanding about what we should be able to see and to which degree. What does it mean that we have a clear eyesight? You've mentioned the blackboard, so the introductions of glasses and lenses pretty a very recent thing within the human history.
Well, glasses a bit less so. Glasses have been around for quite a long time.
Yeah, but they used to be available only to kind of, let's call it a higher class, who would be occupied with the so-called, I don't know, like
books.
Well, books, but also like jobs that wouldn't be physical, right?
Yes.
Not necessarily you would see a worker, a physical worker wearing glasses, or even a person working in the kitchen, a woman working in the kitchen. So that used to be quite a privileged thing even to wear glasses. And then with the mass introductory of the educational system, it would be normal that many children would actually wear glasses at some point in order to see the blackboard. And then there comes this whole association with school, education, and losing eyesight. So it's also interesting that you said that you decided that you're gonna work on your eyesight in the time of your life when you had more space and a quiet space when you could take time with it. So can you tell us more about your experience, how it was for you?
Okay, So when I first started, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know any techniques, any theory. I didn't know anything. I just knew that I needed to not wear my glasses, because as long as I was wearing my glasses, there was no room for my vision to improve. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I knew that, and I knew being outside was going to be really important.
So we can just maybe clarify for people who don't know it, that when we wear lenses or glasses, usually eyes don't have the possibility to work as much as they would without that aid.
Yes.
Plus, if you wear lenses, there's also less oxygen coming to your eyes. It's quite
There
important.
was something that I actually wanted to mention. It's just a small thing, but I was curious if you have this experience. When I used to wear contact lenses a lot, because I was quite self-conscious about wearing glasses, and also I didn't like to have the thing on my face all the time. It really gets in the way. It steams up when the temperature changes. It's just like so annoying. So I wore lenses a lot of the time. But I noticed there's certain things like when I would chop onions, my eyes would never water.
Oh yeah, when you have lenses,
and when I take them out, then my eyes would water.
Right,
So that's an interesting
so that's the level at which the environment kind of cannot reach even your natural environment, wherever you are, cannot even reach the surface of your eye to that degree as it could if you didn't wear the lenses. And that's through basically the area. So the air doesn't. It's almost like wearing many layers on your skin. And you know, some people wear lenses pretty much from the time they get up until they go to sleep, and that used to be me for many years.
And then you have really dry eyes, you get eye drops for the dry eyes and all this kind of thing.
So was it then, during your stay in the countryside, that you came across your teacher from the States?
So this actually took a little while. So first I was just doing stuff on my own. I was going for walks Actually, I went for a lot of barefoot walks because I think I wanted to feel more what was going on because I was not trusting my vision so much. But so I went for a lot of walks without the glasses, and I wasn't driving at the time, so that wasn't really an issue. And then I think it was towards the end of the summer I came across an eyesight teacher that was in an area that I could get to.
Oh, right.
And I did a few sessions with her.
But that was someone else then?
That's someone else.
Oh, I didn't even know about it.
Yeah. And I didn't quite resonate with the way that maybe like she was teaching me about things, but at the same time it was really good to just talk to someone who knew a lot about it and who has seen people go through that, and who to know that it's actually a thing, you know, that people have studied to help people improve their eyesight and that it's possible. So it was more important from that perspective.
Confirmation that this is a real thing, that you're not the only one.
Yes, and then I found another vision teacher in Glasgow that I went to a workshop with. That was Anna Bambridge, and that was like another kind of like, oh, there's another person. And I think in the meantime I actually found a lot of stuff online. So I found Integral Eyesight, that's Nathan Oxenfeld, and I was really like helped a lot by
Integral Eyesight. What is this?
It's a vision educator called Nathan Oxenfeld, and that's his Integral Eyesight.
So it seems like I didn't know about that. It seems like that method is actually, those methods are getting more popular.
Yes.
People start being interested in
this. Exactly. So I sort of found this entire world of eyesight improvement. I was like, oh my god, it's a real thing, and people do it, and it's happening now. And there's young people. About it. Yeah, there's young people like involved in it. It's not just like really, really old people. I found out about the Bates method, which we can maybe go into a bit later. It's kind of a whole other can of worms. So that was like, gave me a lot more confidence to keep going. And then I think it was maybe even the following year that I found Gloria again, who's my teacher at the moment. And I'm doing a 2-year program with her. I'm in the 2nd year.
Online, yeah?
Online, yeah.
Because she's based in States, and there's more people coming to it?
Yeah, it's a group. We have like group calls, and that's also really helpful because you're hearing other people's experiences, and maybe sometimes you're getting stuck with something and someone else has a good way of like dealing with that situation, and you're also seeing other people have like breakthroughs or moments of clarity, so you're getting this constant feedback of like,
that's
other
possible.
People are doing it, this is possible, you can do it this way or you can do it that way, and Gloria is there to support you if there's something you're really stuck with, and she's like giving us lots of information, and so you're sort of reading but you're also talking to people and practicing. So it's sort of like, she kind of gives us, how to describe it, like this kind of encyclopedia of different techniques and methods that have worked for people in the past. And then she'll explain how to do them, and then you just go away and you practice and you find out which ones work the best for you. Yeah. And you just keep doing that. And
this is what you do also in your workshops here that you run from Salisbury Centre. You basically share with people those practices, we practice them together, and there's also space to share the experiences, so there's this emotional support along the way, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, I think the emotional side is really important. One, because like how we take in sensory information of any of our senses, not just our eyes, is influenced by our emotions and by our psychology and what we're already conditioned or primed to be able to take in. But also because in most parts of the world and in most circles, the idea that you can improve your vision naturally and that you could actually end up not being dependent on glasses is so out there and radical and challenging.
Yes, it's out of the mainstream,
that most people are going to not believe it. And if you're like one person that is like, you're not sure if it's possible, but you want to try it, and then you talk to someone about it and they're like, don't be ridiculous.
But
it's going to really put you off, so having that support is really important.
We need to remember when we doubt those methods, they're seen as new, but they're not new because people are always using different methods to improve their health, overall health, or physical, mental health, psychological health, whatever. But when we speak about other, let's call it problems, health problems. Like, for example, nowadays we face a big problem of cancer, right? And diseases connected with the pollution, water pollution, air pollution. People always were using and were looking for other than conventional ways to improve their health and heal. So why shouldn't be looking at those ways also about eyesight?
No, absolutely.
Plus, what you've mentioned just a second ago about emotional well-being, it seems so big because vision and eyesight is connected with the way we can control how we are being seen. For example, today I'm not wearing lenses, and I think you also don't, right? So we had quite a really long go setting up the camera, because normally I would wear them, but we've managed to do it. And as I'm experimenting now with no lenses whatsoever, not all the time, but more than ever before, also talking with people, and I have quite a very short vision, -6, one actually is -6.5 now, another -6, which some people would say that's like, people who have experience of that, they would say that's really, everything's blurry. But then I'm noticing that I can relax slowly, and that we are both into meditation as well. We recently came back from the Vipassana retreat, so I think that meditation practice also helped me to notice how do I feel about my vision and what feelings arise around that idea of improving that, and what does it mean to improve it. Like, some people would call it very philosophical, but I found it very real, very down to earth, very connected with everything that I am and my life. Because taking the lenses off also was about coming back to that time of my life when you mentioned yours were nice and it was in my eyesight. So it was almost part of like a therapy, you know?
Yeah.
Or something very personal. It wasn't just about physically improving eyesight, it was about who I am, who I was.
Well, because and Gloria said this before, we talked about it in sessions, that she's worked with people where in some aspects, like when people take away their glasses or their lenses and they go out into the world, there's a part of you that hasn't like moved past this like difficulty in life. So like at some point in your life your vision got blurry, right? And then you got glasses. So whatever caused the vision to become blurry, if it's caused by something that is partially psychological, which is not necessarily for everyone, but for a lot of people it is, that thing has never been resolved. So it's just sitting there. And then you take away the crutches, so to speak. And suddenly you see this thing again that you kind of never dealt with after that point. And so
when
she
you
said
mean you see that thing again, you mean something in your...
Like a part of you that hasn't moved past that point. So like an example I would give is, maybe you'll discover that you really never got over this thing that happened.
You mean you didn't integrate it?
Yeah, you didn't integrate it, and you still...
You didn't look at it.
There's still a lot of charge when you think about it. Maybe there's a lot of emotional charge. That could be one way that it manifests. But an example Gloria gave was she was working with someone and she was working with a shifter.
What is a shifter?
A shifter is like a piece of plastic or card, and it has lots of slats in it. Maybe I can send you a link that you can put in the description or something.
Sure.
And what you do is you move it back and forth in front of your closed eyes with a bright light, ideally the sun, and that's getting like movement and light into the eyes, and it's encouraging the eyes to move naturally as they would if your sight was perfect. So it's helping the eyes to relax. And she was working with an older gentleman with this, and he started to suddenly have very, very intense flashbacks of abuse that he suffered as a child that he had completely forgotten about. So that's what I mean. That's a very extreme example.
It is an extreme example, but even if you take something, let's say more casual, let's call it like that, when you were a growing up kid and you had maybe that boy that you liked in the class, and then the teacher was like, don't bother, don't stop, we're gonna sit you somewhere else, we're gonna sit you separate, and then there's problems more or less at the same time coming with the vision, and you're being told that's normal, you're gonna wear glasses, but your internal feeling was, I don't like it, I don't like these glasses, I feel different than others, right? It's almost like a punishment, like all of it was like not a pleasant, process at all, kind of maybe in your unconscious it came all together. I don't know. But
well, I remember, so I had this memory recently of that time again, and especially of that moment in the optometrist's office. And the optometrist sort of secretary was really nice. She was a really nice woman, and she like gave me the glasses and she said, "Can you see the signs across the street? Are they clearer?" And I remember saying, yeah, they're clearer. But I remember she was like really happy, you know, like, "Oh, it's great for you that you see clearly." And I remember really not feeling that was great. I remember being like, no, this isn't what I want. Like there was some part of me that I felt really disappointed about it, because I think some part of me didn't want to see clearly.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready for it, so it didn't feel like the solution. That was not the solution to the problem, and I felt very.
There's so many things that I would like to talk about it. Really limited time. And what I'd like to come back to specifically is that seeing and losing, that's called losing eyesight, or having a blurry vision, because even the way we describe it already is actually a judgment and understanding of it, right? How this event that then also we kind of forget and get used to it and saying it's normal that we cannot see, and we also say we cannot see, whereas there's always something that we still can see, which is I think very important here. But it kind of becomes, like you said, you kind of pass something, you kind of forgot something that happened around that time when it all started. It can be very traumatic, or it can be something that we would look from adult perspective that's not traumatic, but it was difficult perhaps. But when something happens in our development, when we are children, or later on when we're adults, but mostly when we're children, and most of the society actually goes through something like that, and that's why we struggle really to maintain a peaceful, happy society, I would say, you know. For example, Gabor Mate says that we live in a world that's traumatizing us all, and I would agree with him. So to a degree we all go through it, but I think if you are born maybe particularly a sensitive person, or something very difficult happens in your childhood, then you're gonna withdraw. And part of this withdrawal is gonna be stiffening the body and cutting out of that body, not to feel the body, not to breathe fully, and then that eyes can also come like, okay, you don't have to see, I'm gonna help you, and you will not see. So it's very psychological. It
can become a form of dissociation, and for many people it is a form of dissociation, especially in myopia, which is where you struggle to see far away, because it can feel very threatening that there's all this world out there, and it's like, I just want to be in my safe little bubble, and so I don't want to see what's out there. Of course, in reality, it's safer to be able to see out there, but on an emotional level, you feel safer when you just don't see it. So it's a form of dissociation in many cases, and I don't say that with judgment at all, because chances are, like at the time that happens, we're doing the best we can with what we have, and we're actually protecting ourselves from something that we don't know how to deal with in any other way. So it's an adaptation.
And then the body gets used to it, and then when we decide to look at it again, like you said, in a natural way, so we take those lenses off, or we take those glasses off, and we start looking, the first thing we might see is that we were used to, I think, I don't know if you'd agree with it, but I've noticed that in my journey with you and on my own, you know, that I think I've actually noticed before, maybe already 2 years ago, when I started spending a lot of time on my own, that I used to look only one way, and then as I was exploring, I started doing many different body practices over the years, and since I started spending more time alone, I gave up my regular employment. It was nearly 3 years ago now. So I had a possibility to explore more, right? I had more time and space. So regarding to my eyes, I've noticed that I used to not allow myself to look around, and that's the same with the head and neck and shoulders. So I think what you were already mentioning in here is like, how do we navigate our environment, what we want to see, what we're ready to see, and also the relaxation, which is really a part, and letting go a bit of that control, which is a big part, I think, of this holistic methods, because there's many practices around how to relax your eyes.
Well, I just noticed you used the word control there as well, which I've not been sort of thinking about that part of it so much, but in the past I have, where like how much it's also about control, and so it can feel like there's so much chaos happening and I can't control it. So what can I control? I can control this field, you know, or like I can control, like I'm not going to look that way. I can control that, you know, I can control where I look, what I see, but I can't control the stuff out there. So it's that kind of, like you said, like if for some reason you feel the need to control things for safety or whatever it is, then I'm trying to think how to word this. It's hard to just let things be how they are and to see as much as we can clearly. There is an aspect of needing to just be able to do that. Just being like, well, this is just how
I want to see clearly. It doesn't matter what I'm gonna see.
Yeah, like things are how they are, and I don't have to actually feel a certain way about it. There isn't like
But that's already a second step. If you say that I don't have to feel a particular way, because there is already an assumption that some feelings about it would be welcomed and some wouldn't. Whereas I would say that, to me, it seems that the holistic eyesight improving is connected with meditation, actually, practice, or any other spiritual practice in which you learn to embrace what is rather than to resist it. And that's why I think it also came to me, these practices in your classes, in the time when already for a couple of years I was more exploring who I am today. And improving the eyesight came like as a natural way of exploring this even further. Who I am in a society, in a culture, you know. Interesting that we speak about control, because I think it's a part of our culture to feel and think that we are in control, and to make sure that we are seen as this as well. Which is very interesting, because with age, as we become older, we lose capacity to control our bodies further and further more. And we sometimes even, I mean, I can't speak that exactly for myself, although I have experience of illness and depression when my body literally couldn't move. But I know, for example, older people in their 70s and 80s, and they say they didn't know it's gonna be like that. I didn't expect that my body will not be able to walk that way, and I'll fall and stuff like this. And you know, when we get older and many people are taken to the care home, it's we presume that that person is not in control of themselves. For example, they have dementia, or they cannot control the body, and so on. But there's a lot of assumptions about what is controlling, what is safe, who ensures that you are safe, or how you display the signs that you are a normal member of a normal society. That's all about that image that we're trying to produce in order to belong. So what I speak about here is much, let's say, underneath what might seem at first like it's just your eyes, it's just ability to read or walk across the street. But to me, there's much more to it than just seeing. It's our understanding of who we are in a society, because also how we are being taken to the optician, because we cannot see what's on the blackboard, and what's on the blackboard at school is kind of true. You should be able to read it, you should be able to repeat what's there, you should be able to give back to the teacher what they tell you, that you need to remember. Blackboard is there to remind you about it, what's true, what is also important. The way the class is set, that everyone look at the blackboard. We don't face each other, we don't talk with each other. You're not able to talk with your friend about something else. You cannot say to the teacher, I don't want to learn maths, I want to spend that time in a different way. In school we learn to belong to the society, and we learn to compete. We learn what is the right knowledge. And if we lose our eyesight, it's almost like we could say on a psychological level, a refusal to follow that, at least from the body perspective. I might not be aware of it, but part of it is like, I don't like that, I don't want to see this, I don't want to participate in it.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking about the sort of schooling system. I think it's worth talking about that a bit, and how a lot of it is focused on discipline. You know, like there is this kind of like surface level of we need to learn all these different subjects, but the entire setup, the whole setup is kind of about discipline in a way, because a lot of the classes are taught in the same kind of way, so it doesn't matter what the subject is. Like you say, everyone's sitting in the rows facing the blackboard. I mean, now I don't know what it's like. I think that things are changing a bit, but it's slow. It's slow, and it depends what country you're in. But you know, like, oh, don't look out the window, look at the blackboard. You know, like that controlling of the way the body wants to be.
How you sit as well in a chair, you know, that already.
Sit up straight. Don't look there. Don't talk to them. Da 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 da.
And try to sit in a different way. You know, it's not gonna be already seen. Like, what are you doing in your hands? You know.
Why are you fidgeting?
Exactly.
All this stuff.
Yeah.
So this kind of like, like discipline and sort of, just the concept of procrastinus bed came into my mind. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's like I'm not sure exactly what the origin of it is, but I think it's possibly like a Greek sort of parable, and it's basically about this. I don't know if he's a god or whatever. I have to look into it to actually find the origin of it. Maybe we can put that also in the description. But the idea is that there's a bed in the hotel, and the bed is a certain size. If you're too small for the bed, you get stretched to fit the bed. If you're too big for the bed, they cut a bit off of you, so you fit the bed. It's the same.
That's normal behavior.
Yeah, so anyone who is not already fitting nicely in the box is going to get pushed and pulled and stretched so that they fit.
And here comes the norm also, what is a clear vision and how clearly you should be able to see, because with a time people have different ideas about what is a clear vision and what is health in general and what is normal, and all the time it changes. For example, and that's going to be controversial, we've spoke about it before, that some people decide not to wear glasses, especially as they age, because they decide that they know their environment well enough not to wear them. And sometimes they don't want to admit that, because that wouldn't be necessarily seen as the right thing to do, right? Because we see it as not safe, dangerous, if you cannot see well enough. But what you did when you started with this journey of improving your eyesight, you went outside barefoot. Many people are afraid walking barefoot even when they have a good, it's called good vision.
I just want to say, for the record, where I was walking barefoot, there was like nettles and like old barbed wire fences and stuff like this. So I had to take my time in the beginning, but slowly I would know kind of where these things were. And it didn't mean that I didn't see them. So it's funny, I think we have this idea that like when people know a place, they don't see it anymore. And I think that that's sometimes true.
It can be in their head, right?
Yeah, like your body knows where everything is, so you don't have to see it. And I think sometimes this is true, but I also think on the other side of that is that when you are feeling comfortable in a space that it is semi-predictable, you actually see it better.
In which way?
So, in the sense that it's familiar already, so there isn't this effort you're making to see, oh, what's that? What's this? Like you're expecting to see something clearly, and if it's not there, maybe you're more likely to notice that rather than that it is there.
Okay, so you're
so like when I kind of knew, oh, there's a bit of fencing wire here, I would see it much more quickly because I already was expecting to see it. And if it wasn't there, then I would be like, oh, is it there?
Yeah.
And then maybe it wasn't there.
It's the same as, for example, taking your glasses or lenses off in the town where you know, or the flat that you know, like your own flat or your friend's place or parents' place, or the street that you know, the park that you know, and how it is if you travel, for example, somewhere you haven't been before, right? Although I must say that the city design in Europe is so similar, and then if you are comfortable speaking with someone you don't know and asking them for direction, but there is still that feeling of control, because even if you want to approach someone, ask them for help in town, if you cannot see something, you want to know who you're approaching, so you want to have a sense of who that person is before you're going to approach them, right? And vision is such a great part of how we assess who is another person who comes across our way. So in our society, kind of we kind of cut off from all other senses to a degree, but the vision is seen as the most important
we're
one.
very visual beings.
Plus, of course, legs if you cannot walk, right? Which is also how the culture is designed around people who
Yes.
can walk and have a clear eyesight,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the city design and everything else, but also the culture itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that should give you that independence as well, right? It's also about that control, because you can be independent, you don't need to ask for help.